The Beauty is back this week with episode 5 of the show, and out of all of the episodes so far this season, I think this one was probably the worst. It wasn't bad, but it didn't really progress the story forward, and we ultimately spent the entirety of it 3 years in the past seeing how the Beauty began to take over the nation and spread like wildfire. Following Jordan returning to Cooper and him eventually believing that she was who she said she was, this episode felt like it was solely focused around the lengths that people go to feel beautiful, what it feels like to be on the receiving end of it, and the fact that some people are even prepared to die for it. So with that, let's dive into this episode, break down the ending, and I'll share what I thought of it. Here is The Beauty episode 5 ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The origin of the Beauty. Within this episode, we spent a lot of time looking at the origin of the beauty drug and how it came to be. Ray, the scientist that we saw Byron working with in the previous episode in the present day, was the person that was developing the drug, and once he felt like it was in a position to be rolled out, some of the richest people in the country were willing to take a punt on it and become the beautiful individuals that they'd spent their lives trying to become. Vincent D'Onofrio was in this episode and he played the older version of Byron, Ashton Kutcher's character. He was the richest man on the planet, and as we saw when he returned back to his home, his unhappy relationship was something that was at the heart of the character. He was having relations with his assistants because he couldn't stomach how his wife looked, as she'd come to accept the fact that she was aging, but he hadn't. The conversation between the both of them was actually quite powerful, and it basically brought to light that if you spend your life chasing beauty, going under the knife, the needles, and adopting the latest fads, you think that you'll get the perfect life. But as Franny found out, all it did was give her a life where she was trapped inside of a golden prison. Yes, she was rich, but she was unhappy because the person that she was supposed to love and the person that was supposed to love her was simply full of hatred. Byron cared more about his own vanity than he did his family, and even his son, who was an addict and simply needed a helping hand with his addiction issues. Byron just viewed him as a disappointment and a failure and was more focused on looking beautiful himself. Franny said that beauty is the answer to nothing, and when she realized that, it was the happiest that she'd ever been. I find it interesting because it's relatively easy to say that when you've got billions in the bank, a nice house, and you've got a level of power. But as we saw with Jeremy, he was a man that was living in his basement, had no more money to pay for his internet partners, and was utterly miserable. Whereas now, with the beauty that he's got, he's the happiest that he's ever been. Personally, I just think that's perceived happiness though, as Jeremy wasn't a nice person down to his core and blamed the world rather than trying to make a difference himself. The Beauty was originally known as the Manhattan Project of Longevity and Aesthetics, and the 5 multi-billionaires were going through the procedure in order to look young again and cure them of all of their ailments that they had, which had come on due to the age that they'd gotten to. We saw that when it got administered, the DNA of the human would be completely rebuilt and it would unleash the most perfect physical form that they could possibly ask for. During the climax of the episode, once all of the billionaires emerged from their cocoons as their new beautiful younger selves, Byron went into his bag. The bag that he wanted to keep with him that he didn't let Ray take away. He pulled out a weapon and then began taking everybody out that was in the room. Showing that he not only wanted to be the sole beautiful person, but with Ray saying that nobody else knew about the treatment other than himself and that he was like a watchmaker where everybody just made parts individually and then he put them all together himself. Byron then kidnapped him, killed everybody there and took him for himself. This showed that he wanted to develop it under his own company, release it himself and then take all of the profits for himself too. Showing that beauty, wealth and power were the 3 things that this was going to give him. With us believing that Byron originally developed the beauty, it showed that it was actually stolen and he was going to use it to profit for himself and make himself even richer. This also showed us that the super elite that were going for this procedure chased beauty to the point where it quite literally cost them their lives. If they didn't have vanity embedded into their core, then they'd still be alive. There was also a moment in this episode where it was brought to light how Byron didn't view his patients as humans. Instead, he referred to them as specimens. Cooper and Jordan and what beauty stands for. With Cooper and Jordan's story, this was another branch of the episode that was focused around the value of beauty, what it brings you, how it can make you feel, and what it truly stands for. Cooper was wary of Jordan to start with because he didn't recognize her, but after quizzing her on things that only she'd know, he came to the conclusion that it was actually her. When Jordan was talking about her experience post coming out of the cocoon, she said how she felt like a transformed person, and then once the panic wore off, the way that she was treated in public was completely different to how she was treated before. People were giving her things for free, they were being kind to her, and they were showing her affection. However, after a while, she saw that a certain type of person began to view her as an object, and the beauty that she felt was something that brought her unwanted attention. She also came to the conclusion that she was actually happier in her own skin, and knowing that even though not everybody around her viewed her as beautiful, because she was comfortable and saw herself as beautiful, that was enough, showing that the validation from others didn't actually matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Cooper made a point in saying to her, "You were always beautiful, to me," and this was something that also connected to what Jordan said when she mentioned that she was originally comfortable in her own skin. As long as yourself and the people that you care about think that you're beautiful, surely that's what counts. What does the free coffee and the flower from a stranger truly mean? It's all surface level. The hunt for beauty is something that many people go after, and they spend an arm and a leg to get there. But like what Cooper said, beauty is the oldest and purest form of currency. So when you have it, it provides a level of riches that can't be attained otherwise. With Jordan then coming to the realization that she might end up like the gloopy pile of flesh and bones that she's been seeing at the scenes, that was then when panic hit her mind. Judging by the other victims, it seems like she's got around 1.5 to 2 years before that happens, so Cooper is probably going to do all that he can to see if there's a way of getting to the bottom of it, and maybe even working out if there's a cure to the virus. Byron was made aware of the fact that the FBI was investigating the beauty and was looking for the source of it all, so he tasked Antonio to spook Cooper out of investigating further. This is why Nate ended up in the flayed state on Cooper's bed with the hieroglyph for beauty being painted on the wall in blood, just like what he saw in Venice. So it seems like Cooper has now got a target on his back, unless he stops digging deeper. My review of the episode. Personally, I thought this episode was just okay. I don't think it was as strong as the first 4 episodes, but I totally understand why it was that we had an episode that was focused around how Byron came to claim the beauty and that he stole it. That entire section essentially allowed us to see why Byron cared so much about the drug and how it ended up in his possession, plus it also allowed us to learn more about it and what it specifically does inside of the body. I am quite disappointed that in the past 2 episodes we haven't really had much of Jeremy and Antonio. They were my favourite characters when the first 3 episodes were released, and ever since then I feel like the screen time has been dramatically reduced. When Christopher Cross was playing in the episode when they targeted Nate, that brought back some of the humour that we had from them in the premiere, so I just hope we get to see more of them as the episodes go on. There's 11 episodes in the season, so there's still plenty of time. When it comes to Cooper and Jordan's storyline, that's one that I am heavily invested in. The FBI element of the show continues to be thought-provoking, and I am intrigued to see how they're going to get to the bottom of it and if Jordan is going to be saved. Now, I know this might sound weird, but I was also kinda disappointed that this episode wasn't as strange or disgusting from a visual perspective as the previous ones. I kinda liked the creepy figures that we'd see, like the chimpanzee face, and also the transformation when the rage entered them. I know it can't just be a compilation of seeing that for 11 episodes, but I feel this one lacked anything like that really. I am still really enjoying the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing the direction that it's going to go in. Sometimes shows have to slow down a little bit in order to allow the tension to build that little bit more so they can accelerate forward. So by providing more clarity on the backstory, that might just have enabled it to do that. Did anybody else also see the trailer for Ryan Murphy's other show, The Love Story of JFK? We're in for a Ryan Murphy winter on Hulu by the looks of it. What did you think of that? Overall, this episode was enjoyable, but it just didn't have what I feel the first 4 episodes had at its core that kept me gripped to it. I am going to continue covering it, so be sure to come back next week to see my breakdown on episode 6. So, there you have it, The Beauty episode 5 ending explained. If you want to see more videos on The Beauty, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future ones. What did you think of the episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.